to navigate the tough times, the failures, the struggles, helping these guys develop an identity that goes, beyond sport. Obviously, for all of us who are very passionate about basketball, basketball is the thing that's all brought us here. But, helping these players have a well-rounded identity about themselves so that when one aspect of their life is struggling, they've got a foundation of other things, whether that's spiritual or family or their education, some other things that they can lean on. So it all starts there. We're the last line of people that are ever going to teach these kids anything. Once they get out of this program, they better know it. They're entering the professional world, and we're the last people that can prepare.
Coach, this is going to be fun. I want to dig in. I want to start with your leadership philosophy, right? Your coaching philosophy and where it came from, other than the obvious at some level, and how it's morphed into where it is now.
Yeah, for me, it's probably a combination of where I grew up, just growing up in Jersey City, growing up in Jersey, just real blue collar, just a blue collar city, a very diverse city. And then, then you grow up as the son of, one of the greatest basketball coaches of his generation. And then the brother of, maybe the greatest point guard of all time in college basketball history. So you grow up in a household of high achievers and high standards, or highest standards, and incredible competitors. And then you also, from a coaching standpoint, you're watching your dad, who is just, was it a constant search or an attempt to master the art of coaching and all the different aspects of our job, whether that's the tactics, the psychology and motivation, the skill acquisition, the talent evaluation, the staff construction. There's all these different things that go into the art of coaching, and to see your dad try to master that his entire career going into year 50, that leaves an impression.
God, I'm sure it is. And I would imagine there's things that you've tapped into that you learned from your dad, but there's probably things I know that you do very independent from what you saw. What are some of those things?
Yeah, so, it's from a tactical standpoint, it's almost like I've taken my father's defensive principles. So like one half of the court, I'm literally using the same exact defensive principles that he taught with his, not to get too technical, but,
Sure.
With his man-to-man defense. It's like, to this day, it's still, incredibly championship level. But, I would say just my relationship with the players, having been a former player, going through struggles with confidence in like my own career in college, just it affects the way that I interact with my players, particularly on game night. I find myself very much a cheerleader, a corner man for a boxer, just trying to get my players to their absolute like maximum level of confidence on game night. And I think old school coaches back in the day, they yelled at you when you made a mistake in the game. They pulled you off the court. They benched you. And those experiences for me as a player really haunted me in my career in college when I got to that level. So I try to just interact with my players differently.
Before you have done what you've done with back-to-back national championships, how do you hold guys accountable in the environment that we live in with NIL and sort of all of these things that we're navigating, where you can't, at some level, it feels like, I've had other coaches tell me, it's like you can't stop recruiting them. Yeah. But we know in coaching, we got to hold these guys accountable, and in service of really getting the best version of them out as an athlete and as a person. How do you do that?
Well, Molly, it starts by not recruiting the ones that won't let you do it.
Love that. Totally.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. But how do you assess that, Coach? I mean, at some level, how do you assess that?
We watch. We don't recruit from the ESPN rankings necessarily, or the Rivals top 100, top 50 list. We kind of go out into the different events where we can evaluate talent with an open mind, and look for players that have the physical traits, but then we also really just try to zero in on how they're interacting with their teammates during the course of these games. How are they interacting with their coach during the game? If a player drops a pass, or are they supportive, or are they showing up their teammate? When they get taken out of a game, are they showing the coach and the players on the bench respect by kind of dapping everybody up, or do they go sit at the end of the bench and have a meltdown? What are their parents doing during the game? What are their parents saying on the phone when we talk to them about their career and their aspirations? Are they highly critical of their current coaches? If they're highly critical of their current coaches, they're probably going to criticize.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so I think you look for the physical traits, you look for the attributes that are must-have: size, athletic ability, game processing, and then obviously you look at their inner circle, and are these people going to support us? Are they going to allow you to do their job? Will they move over to the seat of parent once they come to UConn and allow us to be the coach? There's a lot of players that we recruit for a very long time, Molly, and then when we bring them on a campus visit and we get 48 hours with them, that we go in another direction, because we know that they won't fit into our culture, because we're actually we're trying to win here. Yeah,
clearly, and it's working, Coach. So when they're in, right, and they're a lot of people like you when you're an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid and you make now an interesting amount of money, right? You're on a world stage, you're winning championships, you're a projected maybe NBA guy. You get a lot of friends really, really fast. How do you have the difficult conversations? How do you hold them accountable? How do you coach them up and get that buy-in and that trust to hold them accountable in a way that I think we live in a world where it can be hard, but it matters?
Yeah, no doubt. And it really, like all things, comes down to the relationship and the effort that you make. And I think we've got a rule as a staff here that, like, every day that these kids are going to be on campus, so it comes out to 11 months a year. When they get 2 weeks off in August, you get a week off in 5 days off in July, maybe a couple of days for Christmas. But every day that these guys are on campus, we're here with them. Either we're practicing and training, or we're interacting in a weight room, or we're meeting with them individually or as a team, or we're watching film, or we've got a book club, or we're breaking down a podcast, or we're always functioning and operating. So these players, student athletes, they talk to their friends. They know what's going on in other programs where maybe they're doing half as much, or they spend half the amount of time on relationships, or maybe the coach spends a lot of time in the summer working on his golf game, and I don't play golf. My interests are my team, my program, my family. So there's a very, very high level of trust that gets built up in terms of the commitment that we make to them. And then now that's something that we've always had. Now we also have evidence. evidence of players being drafted, to go to the NBA as lottery picks or as high draft picks. And now we have championship evidence as well, where folks know that the program works both for individuals and from a team standpoint.
Mm-hmm. During your playing days, I mean, you sort of alluded to that, right? At Seton Hall, you almost quit, and you had some tough moments, no question, that have shaped how you do what you do as a coach. What has that done relative to the way that you show up as a coach?
Yeah, for me, Molly, it's like a thorn in my side. Just anytime I see a picture of myself or a highlight or a low light from my time there, it still bothers me. It touches a nerve. With me that I went through, a critically important time, and with my passion with basketball, which I love so much, where I self-sabotaged, where I didn't really want to know if I was quite good enough, so I gave myself the ultimate out by drinking too much and not being in the gym enough and not watching enough film and not committing enough to my career and to Seton Hall and our teams and PJ Carlissimo and George Blaney, the two head coaches that I let down, the teammates at that time that I didn't give enough to. It bothers me. So, the coaching aspect of my life, I find myself just probably overpouring, being overly obsessive about honoring what I put into this aspect of my career. And, part of me too feels like maybe coaches back then, they didn't necessarily take a holistic approach to developing young people. So for me now, I feel like I get a chance to be the coach for players that I probably could have used back then, that cared about the total development of their players as people, as athletes, the spiritual life, the mental, the emotional, the physical. Back then, you saw your coach from 3 to 5:30, and now the role of a coach, I think, is a lot more impactful in terms of what we can do for young people.
Yeah, no question. I mean, that I would imagine, how much of that is what drives you, Coach, the opportunity to influence these young men in such an incredible way?
That's always been the thing for me. It's the special thing. It's the relationship. It's being a role model. It's modeling, the habits and the qualities and the characteristics that these young people are going to need to not only be successful, but to navigate the tough times, the failures, the struggles, helping these guys develop an identity that goes, beyond sport. Obviously, for all of us who are very passionate about basketball, basketball is the thing that's all brought us here. But, helping these players have a well-rounded identity about themselves, so that when one aspect of their life is struggling, they've got a foundation of other things, whether that's spiritual or family or their education, some other things that they can lean on. So it all starts there. We're the last line of people that are ever going to teach these kids anything. Once they get out of this program, they better know it. They're entering the professional world, and we're the last people that can prepare them.
Yeah, man, oh man. Well, you're going for your third straight national championship. And, one of the things that I love about you is you have a drive. It's a book that I wrote that's coming out in September called Dynamic Drive, because to me, I've heard you talk about it's not about the drive really to achieve. It's about the pursuit of better. And I actually had Gino Auriemma on, and I said to him, I said, Coach, I mean, you've won 11 national championships. Like, you've been to 23 Final Fours. He was at one point 14 consecutive Final Fours. I'm like, Coach, that is insane. Totally. And it's funny, Coach, when I ask people, who's won the most college, national championships, men's or women? You get Coach K, you get, John Wooden, you get, and so I said to Coach, I said, how have you sustained that level of success? And he said, Molly, when winning for the sake of winning becomes the only goal, it isn't sustainable. And in other words, it's not fun anymore and it's not sustainable. And I've heard you talk about that, right? Like that you win the championship. You're at the pinnacle. You're at the peak. It's. I think some people don't realize it's an actual ripe place for complacency to set in. How have you, you win your first one. I'd love to know how that felt. Then a second one. Now we're going after 3. You're never done. You'd love to get 12, 20. I know how you're. Yeah. How do you sustain the mindset for your team as a leader and for yourself at some level too? I think you're inherently super driven, but tell me about that.
Yeah, it's it's complicated, really. And I'm not sure it's always very healthy. I think you do. I think my greatest concern on the job would probably be, just the burnout factor, because I love the work. I love the work. I love being in the gym. I love building it. I love evaluating talent. I love putting a roster together. I love the tactics. I love the leadership. I love the psychology and motivation. I love the attempt to master the craft of coaching and to always focus on, for me, just knowing that you've got to get better and that you've got to keep improving, because if you stay the same, people are gonna catch you and pass you. So I have this insecurity that I think a healthy insecurity about where I am and my need to get better, and not necessarily ever being good enough or measuring up. Maybe it's a Hurley thing, kind of growing up in the family and never quite being enough. When you're measured against those 2 goats right there, after winning the first one, it felt amazing. That lifted a lot of weight, because I had finally, at 50 years old, had my own moment of doing something elite. And I'd always been like really good to great, but I'd never had that elite top of the mountain moment in basketball. So that one was important for me. It took a lot of pressure off. I felt I coached a lot lighter this past year. But
what do you mean by lighter, Coach, when you say you coached lighter?
Just having had that moment, for me, the not measuring up, the always being pretty good, the always, by any measure, if I grew up, Daniel Smith, and I have had the career in basketball that I've had by any measure, by any calculus, it would be a pretty amazing career in basketball. But, being a Hurley, and my father and my brother and just growing up in that household, it never measured up, and that's not even external. It's in your own, your own mind too, knowing that you've never had your moment of, my dad had the Hall of Fame. My brother, he had the back-to-back plus the lottery pick. So for me, just having that moment took a lot of pressure off, made me a lot more comfortable in my skin.
Do you think at some level your confidence really took hold, Coach? Is that a little bit of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, definitely. I think confidence, confidence in terms of, Dan Hurley, Coach Dan Hurley, lifer in basketball, has proven that he's elite. And then also, so it's the family dynamic, but then it's also too, it's in my profession. When you walk into a gym or you walk into the arena of competition, and you take that sideline, you're coaching it with a lot more confidence. You have a lot more self-belief in the way that you do things. You know that it works. and we just doubled down on that. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so I imagine that next year the swagger will be even greater.
Yeah. Well, hey. Well, no, I mean, what's interesting to me, Tom Izzo is a great friend, and Tom won the national championship too long ago, Coach, right? Way too long ago. And by the way, he's won one, my alma mater, but he wins, and the next day he's getting after it,
Yeah.
right? And in the world of sports, the people that get there and stay there, that's how they operate. I would argue that the best do, and in fact spend not a lot of time worrying about everybody else, more time worrying about the things they can control inside of themselves. And so he wins his first national championship, and the next day he's getting after it. And most people in the world would go, dude, like, go to the Waffle House and chill. I mean, for just a day, tee it up.
Not Coach, yeah.
No, but not you either. And so I guess I'm curious, how do you balance peace, joy, fulfillment, contentment at some level, which is different than complacency,
Yeah.
with the pursuit of better every day and this journey that's really never ending?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen. After we won the second one, it's amazing. It's stunning, really, how quickly the euphoria fades. It's not what I expected it to feel like. It's like after we won the first one, I remember calling Billy Donovan, and Coach Izzo is a great mentor of mine too. But I remember calling Billy Donovan and asking him, is it kind of normal to fall off this emotional cliff and kind of, hit a little bit of I don't want to say a sadness, but it not feeling and it's being fulfilling, winning something as you thought it was going to feel like. And then it even faded even quicker after winning the back-to-back. I think getting on that plane from Phoenix, instead of cracking open a bottle of champagne or some nice wine, we were talking about NIL fundraising and who we were going to lose to the NBA draft and who we wanted to return and who was in the portal. And we were already on roster construction. On the plane ride, just getting back the next day after going back to back, something that hasn't been done in a long time. So my wife, to try to balance it, I struggle with the balance. Like I said, my biggest concern is the burnout piece, but I've gotten better at getting out of the office when the players aren't in here and not feeling guilty about getting to the Jersey Shore, taking a 2 or 3 day vacation. Because once I get to days 4, 5, 6 on a vacation, Molly, I just start ruining it. I just start ruining it for everyone that's on vacation with me.
Yeah.
So just taking those short breaks, or my wife saying, "Hey, I think you need a weekend." The people that know me the best, and the staff I've worked with here, let me know that this would be a good time to catch a weekend or take a week off. To recharge and get away from things has been big for me.
I've sometimes thought that if our purpose in life, our core values at some level, are an integral part of the chase that we're on, that we can keep burnout at bay if we know why we do what we do. Do you think that's true? Does that feel true to you?
For me, I've set in my mind like a finish line of when I would like to move into another direction potentially, or maybe go coach at the high school level potentially when I get into my 60s. So for me, I've almost set some type of a finish line at 60, which obviously that could change for me, but. I'm just relentless. I think our program is relentless with the way that we play. I think our culture is relentless. I struggle. When I get to a point where I feel like I can't pour every single thing I have into my players and into the place that I coach at. When golf or or vacation is more appealing to me than being in the gym or being with my team, then I'll be cheating my players. I'll be cheating UConn, and that'll be time for me to bail.
Yeah, no, I mean it's you're a very thoughtful person. I mean, I've heard you talk about that, and a very spiritual person as well. So what did Billy, right? He's won 2 back-to-back. What did he say relative to how it feels on the second one, and what drives you on the third one and the fourth one? I mean, some people in the world might go, what's enough, Dan? What's enough? Maybe your wife is like, dude, what's the number? Tell me.
Well, some of that, I mean, I didn't probably, just like anyone that is a mentor of yours, you don't take everything that they're advising you on and agree with it.
Sure.
Some of it doesn't feel like it necessarily applies to you. In my own mind, I want to be known as one of the greatest coaches, in basketball and college basketball. I want to have one of the greatest careers in the history of basketball. That is a driver for me. Some coaches will say that's not or some, different people will say that's not a healthy obsession. For me, it is something that it's external. But I do need that type of motivation for me, beyond just your impact on the lives of others. I think it's got to be a combination of things. Billy, Billy did say, and he was 100% correct, that the accomplishment will fade quickly, and you will be obsessing very quickly on the next one. So just be prepared for that. It's not going to fulfill you. You're going to be as maniacal in your pursuit of the next one, and get focused on the next one as quickly as possible, because it's going to fade.
What are some of the ways that you, Coach, instill this intrinsic, perpetual pursuit of sustained success within the culture, with your coaching staff, with your players? What are some of the things that you do as a leader? Maybe tactics, maybe there's a story that you do consistently to help transfer at some level your drive internally into their heads and hearts.
Well, I model everything. I model everything to my staff, to my players. Everything that I ask from them. Keep your mind sharp by reading and listening to podcasts and journaling, and playing brain games to keep your mind sharp. We're in the decision-making business, whether you're a player or a coach. If your mind isn't sharp, you're going to struggle. Do I shoot? Do I pass? What play do I call? What substitution do I make? So, modeling, a sharp mind, a healthy lifestyle. I prioritize my sleep. I prioritize, my diet. I prioritize, the type of physical condition that I keep myself in. I don't show up at the building with low energy and out of shape. I enter this building as the first one to enter it, as somebody that is setting a tone and setting a standard and a pace for the people around me that's going to be very, very hard to keep up with. I model my family values and having great relationships. I'm proud of my marriage with my wife Andrea, and how great my 2 sons are, and that is a foundational piece that I can lean on in tough times, and to help me to keep my perspective. I've got my spiritual life that I wear on my sleeve, my faith in Jesus Christ and my Lord and Savior, and what that means for me on a daily basis in terms of another foundational piece. So I come in with an energy and a relentless pursuit of having a day that's going to separate us from the people that we're competing with, whether that's a practice today. In June, we practiced maybe harder for an hour than some other people will be practicing in January. So we'll just continue to separate ourselves on a daily basis. And it all starts with me. I think that's what I love about being a college coach, because of the impact that you can have. I think in college sports, it all begins, with the head coach, and we have a huge impact on the success of our organization.
I've heard coaches say it's a player-led team is sometimes better than a coach-led team. And so, right, I mean, finding that guy that's going to step up that you can lean into when you need to understand and maybe get a different pulse on your guys. What are your thoughts on that?
I believe it. Sometimes I do kind of look at it a little bit as a cop-out.
Yeah.
Especially at the college level, because if you really look at the history of college sports, there are programs that are blue bloods or these great brands in college, but if there's not an absolutely an elite coach with a special makeup, those programs will not stay on the top of the mountain. So and then those player-led teams, they usually eventually evolve to that, because there's a head coach and a coaching staff in place that drives the individuals to the point where they know exactly what to do. The pace, the tempo, the stress, the intensity of practice and the preparation, the culture, the cultural aspect of the organization in terms of everyone thinking the same things, believing the same things, having the same vernacular, that has been instilled and embedded by a very special coach that puts those players in a position to lead each other. But it obviously it begins and ends. It begins and ends with the head ball coach. If you can't create mini-me's out there, it's not going to work.
You have to have a lot of difficult conversations, right? Like, what is your, I hear leaders talk about that, right? Because people tend to think, well, maybe, they walk out of a meeting and they think, I kind of maybe should have said, but maybe it'll go away, right? Like, you want a problem to get good, don't do anything about it. What is your approach to tough conversations?
I mean, brutal, radical honesty. I think I read a book.
Yeah.
Called Radical.
Radical Candor. It's a friend of mine, Kim Scott. Radical Candor. Yes. Yeah, great book.
Yeah. So I'm just a very authentic person, really, and so I think the players, and because of the time that we and I invest in them, because of how hard we work to help these players develop individually, become better players across the board, just better people, better students, just the efforts that we put into their lives, combined with, I would say, just my authenticity and realness as a leader. I'm just very honest about where they stand, where they're strong, where they need to get better. I in real time. I don't allow things to get worse. I don't allow communication to break down. I'm not afraid to have uncomfortable conversations, to look a player or a staff member in the eyes and let them know where they're not measuring up, where they need to improve. I'm very public with my praise of my players and my staff, but in private, I'm very honest about where they are. I'm not afraid of those difficult conversations. I think it's a separator.
Oh, no question. What about goals, Coach? I mean, obviously, there's some obvious ones for sure as a head coach with your athletes, but how do you navigate that with your staff and with your athletes relative to setting and then holding them accountable when maybe it doesn't happen, relative to potentially even the things whether you or all of you decided these are the kinds of behaviors that are all going to ladder up to our third straight national championship? Accountability against those goals is huge. Yeah. Clearly, you do that incredibly well.
Yeah, I think in your own mind, your mindset is when you coach here and where you have the program at currently, which is what they, what UConn brought me here to do, is to going into every season, just being in a position where you're competing at the top of the sport. We're going into every season. You could look at your team and your organization and say we could compete for all the biggest trophies, and so that's where we're at as a program. And I think a lot of coach talk. I think it's kind of dead nowadays. I think with the way media has changed, I think there's nothing wrong with being outwardly confident, externally with the media about having the biggest goals and believing that we've got a chance to three-peat, that our goal is to three-peat, that our goal is to go back-to-back, that our goal is to win the Big East this year. And then I think that does add a little bit in the world that these players are in. They're on social nonstop, so they see my quotes constantly, right? So now I'm just doing a little bit more, psychology and motivation. Where, wow, Coach believes this about us. Coach thinks we're the best team in the country. Coach thinks we're the best team in the Big East. Coach thinks we're going to three-peat. Most coaches aren't saying stuff like this, so he must really believe it. And then it allows me to hold them to that championship standard because I'm not talking my team down publicly. And then we do break things down in a micro way, whereas our goals this year will all be things that are controllable, like defensive efficiency, offensive efficiency, like effort type of plays, like rebound, play like basketball based on discipline, which is like not turning the ball over. Things that are controllable we'll set in a micro way for our team to accomplish. But I think a lot of coach talk, is dead, and we're going to go for the biggest things this year.
How do you create boundaries? I mean, Coach, gosh, man, you got a lot of stuff coming at you all the time, personally, professionally, all of it, physically. What's your approach to setting boundaries? Because I think we live in a world where there's so much coming at everybody. Certainly a coach like you that's won 2 back-to-back national championships at an incredible program. How do you filter that in service of what you shared, managing your energy, taking care of your sleep, physically making sure you're consuming the right kind of food, all the things that allow you to show up as the best version of yourself requires boundaries.
Yeah. I just don't have a lot of excess stuff in my life. I really, I've got the program, I've got the team, I've got the past players, I've got the current players, I've got this monster that I'm working towards on a daily basis here at UConn. I've got my family, which is near and dear to me. Which any time that's not occupied by UConn basketball, that goes to them. I don't have a ton of outside interests, Molly. I said I'm not a golfer. I'm not a connoisseur of fine wines, and I just don't do a whole lot of things outside of things that impact those two areas of my life. I know the thing. I know who I am. I know my identity. I know where I want to spend my time. When I want to get kind of away from the workspace and what I'm doing here, I'll take time with the family to travel. I'll go hit the Jersey Shore to kind of recharge my batteries. But for me, I love to read. I love to study leadership. I love to watch film and study the tactics of my sport. I love to study other coaches in other sports and maybe travel to other sports organizations and see how other coaches lead. But at this time, I know what I know. It's like I know what I'm great at, and I'm not getting involved in a whole lot of other shit.
Yeah, totally.
Sorry about it.
No, that's okay. It's interesting because I think some people think that athletes who achieve, coaches who achieve, programs that achieve, right? Some people in the world would say, well, they're really, really selfish. But I would argue what you shared, which is they're focused as hell on the pursuit and their purpose and their core values, and they put the kind of people around them that allow them to pursue that unwaveringly. And the truth is, I used to always have athletes, coaches, right? Those same people that were like, dude, call me back. Like, what's your deal, man? Like, and they're the same ones calling you for tickets to the national championship game. And you're like, dude, right?
That's right.
It's unbelievable.
That's right.
It's interesting. What do you, before you've had back-to-back national championships, maybe earlier in your journey and following your dad and brother and sort of all that comes with that, when you had moments of self-doubt, how did you reset and recover? And how do you now? I mean, now there's a layer of confidence, right? That's pretty thick, I would imagine. But before, how'd you do that?
Well, that's tough. I mean, it's not too long ago where I wasn't very popular around here at UConn. I don't know how long ago it was, but not too long ago, back-to-back first-round exits in the NCAA tournament, which it did not make me a very popular figure, in and around Connecticut or in the basketball, world. So I just have so much confidence, just in my foundation, in my pedigree, having been a former player, and just kind of my background as a player, I feel like is such an incredible advantage, because as a high school player, I was a top recruit and a player of the year, in the state of New Jersey. So I could relate to my best players on the team. But then I also went through some struggles in college where I didn't play very well. So I could also relate to struggling players on my roster that aren't doing a very good job as players. So relatability to my roster, just my pedigree coming up in the game, having learned from one of the greatest coaches of all time and my dad, knowing my preparation and how much time I put into my craft. And then when you're going through the tough times, I've got the strong family. I've got the strong faith in God. I've got, a great marriage where that's not a distraction for me. It's a strength because it's a great relationship. It makes me stronger, not weaker, because it's going badly. All those things, I think, really factor in.
Yeah, and you're insatiably curious. I mean, I would imagine, and Gino said that too when he was on, that just relative to just this. I mean, he'll pick up if he was calling Hutch at Michigan, the softball coach, I think, when she was, to learn. Right? I'm like, wow.
And when you lose, Molly, it's like you can't. It's I mean, even losing this year, we lost 3 games, and after losing those 3 games, on the plane ride back, or when I woke up the next day, in my mind, it was it didn't happen. It was a nightmare. But then no, wait, we did lose. I just checked Twitter, and
it happened.
Yeah, no, that happened, and then there's a feeling of it's very jarring for me to lose. My father, as a high school coach, he rarely lost. He would lose 1 game a year, but when he did lose, he would have a hard time functioning the next day. And unfortunately for me, I model some of that. So losing for me, in some part, it's I don't want to say a shameful experience, but there's some traces of that. But it's very jarring for me. So just having a morning routine that kind of gets me out of bed in the morning, gets my brain working with some reading or writing and praying and exercise. Just kind of gets me up and gets me going and gets me winning, so that I could kind of, get myself moving in the right direction so I could get things fixed. But I struggle with failure, and it's something that has made me just not want to fail too much.
Is that what motivates you more, failure versus success?
Yeah, I'm fear. And I don't know that it's the most positive thing, but that fear of failure is definitely a driver for me. staying where we are in the sport. I like where we are. I like having the best program in the country. I've gotten used to this feeling, and you don't do sports at this level if you're just a normal human being. That there's something about you from a competitive standpoint, a relentlessness about you that's different than other human beings.
What do you do when you fail? I mean, like, obviously it hadn't happened a lot lately, but I often think failure is just really, at the end of the day, it's an opportunity to get some feedback, right? That obstacles are opportunities to ladder back up and level up.
Yeah.
What do you do? I mean, after you it sounds like pout for a couple minutes. What do you do next?
Well, sometimes I get angry and I want to fight a fan. No, when that's over, I lock in on the tactics.
You get to work.
I do. I mean, I get to work. I lock in on the tactics. I lock in on the game planning and the preparation. I lock in on the confidence level of the team, the individuals, where they're at in terms of their mindset. And you take a big, long look in the mirror, like we did, a couple of years back when we weren't on top. And, and I knew that I was failing in some ways, as a head coach. I was always great with the culture and the energy and the intensity of how we played. But, maybe there was some shortcomings from a tactical standpoint that I needed to address, or, from the groups of people that I was putting together in terms of the way I was constructing the rosters and maybe over prioritizing some characteristics and under prioritizing some other qualities that were maybe more important than the things that I always assumed led to winning. So it all begins and ends with a lot of the decisions I was making.
Yeah. Well, the third one is holy smokes, dude, that's unbelievable. And you know what's so exciting? I mean, I'm curious. You got the formula. You clearly have the formula.
Yeah.
And the work, the drive, all of that. Is there anything about the formula that you're tweaking as you go for third, fourth, fifth? Anything you're tweaking?
Yeah, I think a lot of things. I think the benefit of having been a high school coach and having to work my way up, Molly, through basketball that way, a head coach, high school, low Division I, mid Division I. Now I get a shot here. Is that I've never been married to like one particular system of play. Like I didn't coach with. I was an assistant coach for a head coach in college where I learned the system, and now I've just got to recruit and coach to that. So we're able to go out and recruit the very best players and be very adaptable with the tactics and strategies that we're going to implement. And I do think that we're going to be a lot better in terms of. This will be a better coached team because we're striving all off season to get better as a staff. I know that I'm pushing myself to be a better head coach. For me, I think we had the number one offense in the country and the number two defense in the country last year, and we're studying some of the best offenses around the globe, both NBA, international pro, NAIA Division III. Men's, women's, we're looking for ideas everywhere to gain tactical advantages. And then also, too, our team is going to be constructed differently. So what new ways of playing best suit this different type of group? And then the last part, I've made some strides, even though when the camera does catch me, the camera catches somebody that the camera's on me a lot more than the other coach, by the way. So there's a lot more opportunity, but I want to continue to make strides as somebody that's able to think more clearly while coaching with less emotion. Keep the passion, coach with a little bit less emotion.
Yeah. Emotional regulation can be. It's hard. It's hard when you've got that drive and that passion that you clearly have.
I want it bad, and we want it bad, and sometimes it's tough.
Yeah. Well, I know your morning meditation routine probably helps a little bit. So, Coach, you've been incredibly generous. I want to hit you with some rapid fire, and then you got stuff to do, man. Well, you talked about your morning routine. What's your evening routine?
I allow myself to have whatever dinner I want. I'm pretty structured with breakfast and lunch, and I give myself some shows to stream, and then I'll take a nice hot shower. But I try to turn all the electronics off around 9 o'clock, and I want to try to be asleep by 10 because I want to be up by 5:30.
Love it. If you could pick the brain of any coach in any sport, who would it be and why?
Probably a European soccer manager, maybe Jose Mourinho.
Okay.
Pep. Probably European soccer manager.
What's your best piece of leadership advice? If you sort of think about it through the lens of business, even too, or just what's your best piece of advice for leaders?
Be authentic, but I would say like model what you're asking your people to be about. Like model what your core principles are, because there's nothing worse or there's nothing more demoralizing than a phony.
Yeah, no question. What's the best piece of leadership advice you've ever received from someone?
I don't know if it's necessarily. I would say the constant pursuit of mastery of your craft.
Yeah. What are you reading or watching or listening to right now, sort of through that lens of leadership betterment?
Right now, what am I reading right now? I'm reading Michael Gervais's book. On the fear of other people's opinions.
Phobo. Yeah, I had him on. He's a smart guy.
Yeah, smart guy. So I'm reading that. I probably read 4 or 5 books a month. We're also right now we've got the team is reading. We've got a book club with the team. Team's reading Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning and Carol Dweck's mindset book. So we're kind of covering both those, but. Sometimes I'll give myself, I podcast, I listen to you. I just listened to yours with Coach Freeman on Speed and a Half. So I'm always trying to, but then I'll also give myself a little bit of musical breaks, which I think is important, to give yourself a chance to listen to some Pearl Jam or Tom Petty, to free your mind up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So the show's called Game Changer. So one last question. Who or what is a game changer in your view? Who inspires you and why?
I would say my headmaster that I was that I worked for at St. Benedict's Prep. He's had such a profound impact on my life. And we lost one really brutal game when I was coaching high school for him. And I was walking out of the gymnasium and I was crushed. And he said to me on the way out, hey, coach, don't forget your number one job is to help raise kids. And I'll just never forget that from Father Edwin Leahy, who's an amazing trainer.
Amen. That is awesome. Coach, this is awesome. I'm cheering for you for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's go.